Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Talking Yourself Off the Ledge. Today we have a special guest, Cynthia. She's one of my oldest friends, and we're really excited to have you. We could just jump right in it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
All right. So, today's episode is a little bit about mental health. So let's start off with there, setting the standards. So a little bit background on myself. My parents are from Colombia. I'm first generation American. So I was born in New York. And from there, being a child of an immigrant, it bears a lot of responsibilities. So me being the only one really knowing the language and things like that, I feel like I was forced to grow up pretty quick. I have two sisters in Colombia, but they were pretty much in Colombia the whole time. Mm. So therefore, I was pretty much raised as an only child who happened to move a lot. I was born in New York, like I said. Then we moved to Florida. We moved after that back to New York, then to New Jersey, and from there to Connecticut, where I met you guys. Well, yeah. Met you. So overall, like, I haven't had that many friends that have stuck because of my moving. Mm-hmm. In New Jersey, I had one friend who her parents happened to be my parents' friends too. So they pretty much made, my childhood as far as me being really little. Mm-hmm. But, at home at the age of 6 or 7, I was translating immigration documents and doing my parents' banking. And, at a very young age, I felt like I had to grow up.
I see that a lot in my work. I see that. I'll see like 10 and 11-year-old kids come in with their parents and they're translating all these documents. And I think to myself, like, this 11-year-old seems like an adult. Like, I interact with adults all day long and I'm like, this 11-year-old is like explaining things and making decisions almost like they're an adult. I see that a lot.
Yeah. And it's a responsibility that falls on the child who's born here because they're the ones who know the language, right? Mm-hmm. And lucky those who have more than, just one kid, because then, the responsibility is a little shared between the kids. But since I was the only one here, it was me most of the time. So moving to Connecticut, that's when I met Yvette and, my one other friend. And in middle school, I was shy in the beginning, but pretty social. And that's sort of where everything sort of started. I went through my little emo phase, like everybody else. But again, in a pattern of, moving so much, I was only in Ansonia Middle School for, the 3 years. And then I decided to go to a different high school in New Haven. So again, I'm meeting brand new people all over again. So around the age of 14, my freshman year is when, I had always felt when I was little, a little maybe depressed. Mm-hmm. I thought it was normal. But then, my freshman year of high school is when things sort of started getting darker. And I started getting feelings of like me not wanting to be here anymore. Just didn't find the point of living. I just wasn't happy. There was no logical reason behind it. It's not like I was, getting bullied horribly at school or things like that. It was just, it's just a feeling.
Just a sadness.
Mm-hmm. And then that was my first attempt on taking my life. I took a whole bottle of prescribed pills. But as soon as I did it, it sort of like something inside me was like, this is wrong. You shouldn't have done this. So I go and I tell my parents what happened, and I'm telling them like, hey, I took a bottle of pills. I think you should take me to the hospital because, and the response I get is, oh, you're doing that for attention. And
And did you end up having to go to the hospital?
An ambulance did pick me up. I got the talk on the ambulance of like the depression and what were you trying to do and things like that. But since they saw like that I immediately realized what I did, they never, I mean, I saw fault. Now as an adult, I see the fault in both sides. Like, my parents taking it that way. And
they almost didn't take it seriously.
They didn't take it
because you
seriously.
handled it so responsibly, which is, it's probably they didn't know how to handle it. Yeah, they probably had no idea what to do, how to handle it. They weren't educated on it. Exactly. Neither were you. And then, you handled it so responsibly. They're like, all right, like she just probably wanted attention. We're not going to talk about it.
Yep. And then the other thing too is like, it sort of goes to show how messed up the mental health system is in the United States that, I got picked up by the ambulance. Happens, by the grace of God or whatever you want to call it, that the pills I took were non-lethal, even though I took the whole freaking bottle. Great. But the person in the ambulance was like, well, do you know what you were doing? And I'm like, yeah, I was trying to take my life. I understand what I was doing. I took the wrong pills. And they're like, do you think you're going to do it again? I'm like, no, I know I'm not supposed to. Normally.
And they just accepted that.
After that, it's so crazy to me now looking back, because it's like, dude, I should have been like referred to a therapist, Baker acted, something like, kept
some kind of help.
Yeah. But, the whole time, my parents saying, oh, it was just for attention. Just, it sort of got just washed out, and I got to go home that same night and
went back to school the next day.
Back to school the next day. Like nothing happened. And of course, the family wanted to keep it hush hush and, keep your appearance right, because that's what you're supposed to do or whatever. And that's what happened. I kept it moving after that, like nothing happened. And then, during high school, I sort of noticed that I had a lot of anger, and I was a mean girl, and I wasn't the nicest to everybody. And I feel like that sort of spoke of what was going on at home, that, I was taking it out during the day at school, and then at home, it was a whole different story. So I graduate high school, and, that's where it sort of starts getting even worse with the drinking. I start drinking socially, and I find out that alcohol helps me feel better. So
makes you forget about what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and you get to hang out with your friends, and you're already social. So that's just one more way to enjoy time with everybody, and everybody's doing it. And
Yep. And that's the thing everybody does at that age. So I happen to roll with it, and I'm drinking and having fun and forgetting about, whatever I'm feeling inside. And, some life changes come along. Like I enlisted in the Air National Guard with Yvette. So I start doing that. I'm going to school, college, and paying everything out of pocket, and, figuring the college thing out, because, again, first generation.
You got to be the one to make it.
Yeah.
Right. We sacrificed all of this for you. You better figure it out and make it. And you have to go to college, and you have to,
But you have to do it on your own.
Yep. And I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, how do you even apply to colleges when I was in high school? So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do community college and pay for it myself. And then from there, I'll transfer out. And unfortunately, they wouldn't give me the FAFSA because I was still considered a dependent. So then, at the ripe age of 19, my high school boyfriend, I asked him to marry me to help me with financial aid. And he says yes. And so I got married at 19.
I feel like in military and that age, it's a very common thing, because it's like the benefits, if you're married, are so much better. And so everybody does that. I know a lot of people, like when I was that age, a lot of friends. And for some reason, I was like so against it. I knew better. I was like, you shouldn't do that. Don't get married that young. You're doing it just for but it's common. No, it really happens
even for
a lot.
basic training, like when we graduate, you see so many engagements because everyone's just getting, proposing. And
Yeah, because you like you said, you get more of an income, and then the plus of being able to bring that person along with you. In our case, since it was the Air National Guard, it was just 1 week in a month. So it's not like, I couldn't live without him. It was...
When you're 19, that feels like forever.
Yeah, it does.
It's so not. Like, that's not long. It's
not. But, it happened. We got married at 19, and we fast forward a little bit. So now I'm 20. This whole time I'm in the Air National Guard waiting to be sent to basic training because they were backed up at the time. So I was almost a year without going to full-blown basic training. And then around January, I find out I'm pregnant. And in the beginning, I thought I was happy about it. So, I was telling my friends, like, if it was a cool thing, like a happy thing. But a few days later, I'm like, no, this is not what I want. Like, I'm over here going to college. I'm in the Air National Guard. Like, I have everything going on. This is not the time. So when I decide to have that conversation with my husband at the time and my parents, the response I get from them is, hey, if you have an abortion, we're never talking to you again. And my husband at the time was like, and I'll divorce you because I don't believe in that, and blah, blah, blah. So at that point, it was like, all right, it's not much of a choice, So I was sort of forced to have a kid. And that's how I felt about it. I was
and then
forced.
You weren't able to actually go to basic training at this point now, too.
Nope. So I had to give up on the whole Air National Guard. So that was done. I was going to college, and at that point I was like, well, I'm pregnant. And back to the original route, like, I'm used to moving, I'm used to running away from my problems, and this is a huge problem. And I'm like, I tell my dad, I'm like, you know what, I don't even want to live in Connecticut anymore. I want to move. And of course he loves to move, so he's like, yeah, I'm down, let's go. And we decided to move to Florida. I think like one of the biggest reasons why I did that move was because I was so embarrassed of my life at the moment. I didn't want to be that young girl who was having a kid at 20
and doing all that moving.
Even though that's fine, because it's like, I mean, it's young, but it's not that young. But I get it.
And doing all that moving too, it's like you never really had to have an identity because you never really knew somebody that long where it was like you were that type of person almost, or you had a certain identity. So it's like, okay, I don't want to be identified as this. Let me move and start fresh.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, moving doesn't always solve all the problems.
No, not at all. And the thing is that here in Connecticut, like in high school, I was so involved. I was like president of my high school. Like a lot of people like thought of me, and I thought of myself as someone who was going to grow up to be something, amazing and great. And it's like, all right, I'm 20 years old, married and pregnant. What happened to what I thought I was going to be? So I was fully ashamed of everything that was going on.
And it probably just added to the depression.
Exactly.
That you were already
because you're fighting that the whole time and not understanding it, hadn't been referred to a therapist.
Exactly. So going through these dark times, and now there's just a real big situation where, all right, now there really is a reason why you need to be depressed. So we make the move. And, the whole pregnancy, I'm not working. I'm just home, and I have Sophia, and, postpartum depression kicks in. Like, I'm already depressed. Postpartum kicks in. I'm more depressed. And the memories I have of like her first months of life is me crying all the time. Like, I would wake up at 3 a.m. to feed her, breastfeed her, and be like crying to her and just talking to her and being like, it's not that I don't love you. It's that I just didn't want you yet, and that just added fuel to the fire that was already going in.
Upset that you're even thinking that, but you are, and guilty that you're having certain feelings, and the postpartum is making everything just intensified, and like you probably want to be a good mother, but it's not what you wanted, and it just adds to it.
And probably also the resentment towards your husband and your family just because of the response. I feel like maybe they could have talked with you as far as like maybe other options or how they can help you. But for them to just be like, we would never talk to you
white
again.
Or black, right?
Yeah,
black or white. Like it's
so,
either this or not. That's it.
Yeah, it's almost like I can't even have an opinion. I can't even feel comfortable like letting you know what I'm thinking. So it just must have been really hard.
Yeah, and you're right. I held a lot of anger and resentment towards them because of that. you know, till this day, it's something I'm working on because it's at this point, I can't go back in time, you know. But as soon as all this is going on, I'm feeling this, you know, I'm feeling guilty for having these thoughts about my daughter. And, you know, I don't have anyone to talk to because I've already isolated myself once again from the friends I used to have because I moved. I decide, you know, it's time to start working. So I start working at this call center in Orlando for a cell phone company. And I meet some really cool people who happen to be my age and also enjoy socially drinking. And that's where, you know, everything sort of starts getting even worse. Where, you know, at work, I'm feeling like myself. I'm feeling like the 21-year-old I'm supposed to be because I'm over here having fun with people my age and drinking and forgetting about what's going on at home. And then I go home and, you know, I'm miserable. So that's where the drinking starts taking a play in my life, because it started from socially drinking to now drinking every day to now drinking during work hours. You know, I would make it okay to drink in the morning because I would buy a bottle of champagne and mix it with orange juice and be like, it's a mimosa, it doesn't count. But I'm drinking the whole bottle of champagne by myself. So it's like, all right, you know, where's the line?
Yeah, it's like there seems to be beverages for every time of the day. It's like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there's socially acceptable drinks. That doesn't really make sense.
Not at all. But, you know, I see why people are alcoholics because it helps numb whatever's going inside. So
it's so socially acceptable.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, everybody does it, so
let's go for a drink. Come on, let's go for, hey, you want something? It's like, you don't want to be the person that's like, no, I don't drink. Or, you know, it's weird. I mean, we're totally okay with it, you know, where we are now. But like, yeah, that's a tough transition to make. And
before, like when I was drinking, there was always a reason to drink. If I'm celebrating, I'm drinking. If I'm sad, I'm drinking. If it's just like a Tuesday, I'm drinking. It's like, it becomes unmanageable.
Tuesday are when the deals are. That's when it's like dollar drafts or whatever. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
There's always a reason.
There's always a reason.
And that's the thing that, you know, unfortunately you see so much alcoholism with mental health because of that.
Self-medicating.
You're self-medicating. And for instance, for me, I hadn't yet found help, you know, actual help. So that was my help. And then it gets to a point where, you know, again, met these super cool people at the call center. And then I meet these two new people. And, you know, that's where it starts getting really dark because these two people are not about drinking socially. It's about drinking all the time. So that's when the day drinking starting and drinking all the time. And then one of those people, you know, she introduced me to the party life. She introduced me to those fun recreational drugs. And that's sort of where it took the turn for the worse, because I'm now not just dabbling in alcohol. I'm dabbling with Molly and, you know, fun stuff. And, you know,
a depressed person's number one drug.
Exactly.
That's really it forces you to be happy.
Oh yeah. That was like, you know, to be completely honest, the best high I've ever had, because not one ounce of me was depressed. I was happy. I was meeting people. It was like everybody was on the same page because I'm in a situation and at a place where everyone's doing the same thing. So everybody's happy.
All inclusive. Everybody wants you to join in and come on, and you're accepted and you're loved. And it's like a scene that, I talked about it in my story even. It's like you fit in and you're included and you're in a group where everybody loves you and accepts you. And it's like, you do that, I do that. Cool. We're best friends.
Yep. And
but you're not really.
You're not. And that's the thing that, you know, this person that introduced me to this life, like I consider myself like a dog. I'm loyal. Like I'm so loyal. And, you know, when I think I make true friendships, I stick with them. And, in her case, she didn't have my best intent, you know, she wasn't my friend. So we're, you know, back to the timeline. I'm at the call center. Now I'm dabbling with recreational drugs along with alcohol every day. And I just get into this really deep depression. And the Molly's not working anymore.
And that's what it does. Like the Molly, like you take it a few days in a row and then you crash horribly.
It uses all your dopamine.
Right. It uses everything up and it's
nothing left.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're even more depressed.
And at the time I didn't realize that, I already had something mentally going on, and this drug is going to make it worse after it's done doing its effect. And it got to a point where I remember one night I did seven pills of Molly and nothing happened to me. And it was because I was dried up, like I was done. So one night I remember calling, my ex-husband at the time and crying and being like, I need you to stay on the phone because I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I'm scared that I'm going to hurt myself. I think I feel like just crashing this car into the first tree I see, like I'm done living. So now this is the second time that, I'm thinking of like killing myself. And it was just really dark, and I had no logical explanation for it. I mean, I understand that, my life was tough at the moment, but it wasn't to the point where I don't feel like I should have not been living. Mm-hmm. And, back to the sisters that I have in Colombia, I never really felt close to them because they were in a whole different country. They're also 10 years older than me. And for those who have family outside of the country, sometimes their interests are just financial interests rather than relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's how I always felt about them. I'm like, they're just worried about, us sending them money and that's it. Yeah. And, that year, my sister happened to visit and we formed a connection that we had never had before. Like I finally felt like I had someone. I had a sister. I had someone I could talk to. I had someone that, wouldn't judge me, who, we formed a really nice connection, and I loved it because I've never had it before. So, back to the night that this is going on, I'm driving home. I'm worried about taking my life. I wake up the next morning and I feel exhausted, and, I'm trying to, my husband at the time was trying to make me feel better. And I get a call from my sister, and I got really happy. I'm like, oh, I could talk to her about what's going on. Like she was a medical professional, so maybe she could help me out, tell me what to do. And when I get the call, it's her boyfriend crying. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm so sorry to do this to you. I'm so sorry. And like, Alexandra killed herself. And it's literally, what a weird coincidence that the night before I was thinking about doing the same thing. But as soon as he tells me this, he's like, I'm sorry I had to tell you, but I can't tell your dad. You have to tell him. And again, back to the story of my life, like I have to bear with a responsibility that shouldn't be mine. And I couldn't grieve the way I wanted to. I couldn't, feel bad because now I have to tell my dad and I have to be there for my dad. So I remember going back home and getting on my knees and crying and telling my dad, I'm so sorry, but Alexandra killed herself and I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm so sorry. That's what I kept on saying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And, I didn't feel like I could grieve because I feel like he deserved to grieve more than I did because that's her dad. As a parent, I can't even fathom losing my child. So with that, it was horrible. And that sort of was like, what the iceberg with the Titanic. Like I started.
That was your ledge.
Down. That's it.
That was like your ledge. And
that was my ledge.
Yep.
That was my ledge. And there was nobody to help me off of it. And I fell off of it. After that, I quit the job, the call center job, because I'm like, this alcohol is not doing me right. I'm around people that I don't need to be around. Like, let me just leave. Let me focus on my family. Like, let me try to make a family life now. Mind you, now I'm like 23, 24. So I quit, but the feelings didn't go away. And one day, I'm like, you know what? I'm done. So third time, I'm like, I'm done. This is it. Like, I'm taking my life. Like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to live anymore. So again, you know, I don't know if it's someone looking over me or something, but I'm in the process of like getting things ready to just do it. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just talk to my husband. He's my husband after all. So let me just tell him how I'm feeling. And I tell him, I'm like, hey, I'm scared. I think I'm done. Like, I'm not feeling it. And like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to actually do it. And his response at the time was, great. Now I have to miss work. And again, it's the third time now that I'm thinking of doing this. And the second time someone tells me something crazy, because it's like, you'd think that the people closest to you would give you some support, you know?
And especially like it takes a lot to
even say it.
Get the courage. The courage to actually say, like, reach out for help and like let somebody know. Yeah. And to have that, it's just heartbreaking.
And you know, there was so much more going on between us, and you know, the relationship was at, you know, its end, and I get it. You know, it wasn't a great relationship, but you know, at the end of the day, I saw him as my friend. So even as a friend, I thought maybe, but that wasn't really the case. And you know, my parents already didn't take it seriously. So
the fact you're sitting here is just a complete miracle.
Yeah.
Like that is just
That's what I'm
incredible.
saying. Yeah,
like
I mean, must have been some greater being, because I'm surprised myself. I'm still here.
Well, we're glad you are.
Yeah.
We're glad you are.
And I mean, the only thing that made me say something was my daughter. And it's like, I know I didn't want her to be here, but maybe she was supposed to be here because she's really what saved me. And after that response, he takes me to the hospital to be like, because that's all they do. Whenever you say you feel suicidal, they dope you up to calm you down and just wait. And I got Baker acted, which is a whole different experience in itself.
What is it?
And so when you get Baker acted, what it is that, you know, medical professionals feel like you're endangering yourself or others. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you are pretty much imprisoned for a 3-day period while they medicate you and see if you're okay to go back to society.
Is that national or state? Is that like...
That's national. So okay. The people get Baker acted anywhere. So I got Baker acted and I got put into a psych ward for 3 days. That experience in itself, it broke my heart, because it was like, I'm here because I want to kill myself, but my roommate has multiple personality disorder and is schizophrenic. She's yelling that God is going to come take us. It's like, why would you place me with someone like that? You know?
Like, you need professional therapists. That's what you
need
somebody to listen and talk and pull stuff out of you and grow and learn.
And that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And what they would see, you know, these people as, like, they weren't treated the nicest, and all they would do was like, all right, here's your lunch, have a pill.
Right.
Here's breakfast,
some Librium.
Have a pill. Yeah. And all I did for those 3 days was sleep, literally. And of course, you know, at the end, you speak with a therapist to see if you're okay to leave. And I'm a smart girl. Like, I know what to say. I'm just like, yeah, I understand. I shouldn't have even said that. Like, no, don't worry. That's not going to happen again. I talk myself out of it. You know?
They just read off a checklist is all they're doing.
They read off a checklist.
It's these preset questions that come from who knows where that will then decide if you're a threat to yourself or others.
Exactly.
And it's like that, you know, where's the real help?
Exactly. And at that point, I got sent to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was a little bit more thorough, started asking me questions and, hey, do you usually have these highs and then it gets really low? And I'm like, yeah, I thought that was normal. When you have these highs, do you just do impulsive things like buy random things or things like that? I'm like, yeah, I just bought a 7-day cruise for like, you know, tomorrow actually. And I've done that. I'm like, yeah, I thought that was normal. And they're like, no, you suffer from a type of bipolar that's called manic depression. And it's like, oh, wow. Like at the age of 24, finally someone is telling
putting it
me.
all together.
I was curious exactly. Yeah. What is your response when you heard that? Was it, I almost feel like it wouldn't be this like, oh God, something's wrong. I feel like it's a little bit of a weight off your shoulders. Like, okay, there's something I can address now.
Yeah, of course. It was like oh, okay. Like
That
it
makes
all
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now.
It's
It
like an
all makes
aha
sense.
moment.
Because I never knew that, for me, that was my normal, like feeling down and then happy and then down again. I thought that was what people felt. I guess not. It was just my type of bipolar. And, now looking back, if, the first time in high school, I would have got the help I needed and they would have done a medical family background check, my biological grandmother through my dad's side has schizophrenia and has bipolar. And crazy how when the whole thing with my sister went down, after the fact that she's already gone, her mother and her whole family, oh yeah, she was diagnosed bipolar. All right, well,
And nobody talked about
nobody
it.
said anything, and she was a medical professional. Unfortunately, in a third world country like Colombia, you think that you're going to take your kid to go get help by someone who's schizophrenic. Like, she's not going to tell nobody.
Right.
And if she has to take medications, you have to report it when you're a medical professional. She wasn't taking her medication. So it's like a domino effect. Like, okay, maybe if all of us would have been in a position where we could have talked to our parents, where we wouldn't have, where the culture didn't, have to make us be quiet.
And that's what it is. It's culture, it's society, what's accepted, what isn't accepted, what you should talk about. Like, your kid goes and breaks their arm. You bring them to the emergency room. They get healed. They get a cast. They get their physical therapy, whatever they need. That's normal. That no one would think anything of it. It's almost like if your kid went out and broke their leg and you just trying to put duct tape on it and didn't talk about it. That's the same thing that we're really talking about. It's exactly what it is. It's like not addressing a problem, not fixing a problem because nobody should know. We shouldn't. It's a shame that comes from something like that when people are dealing with it.
And I mean, I guess to some extent, it's also just not being knowledgeable enough about it, not understanding it, and maybe fearing it. But I mean, the more you talk about it, like the more you can understand it. And I mean, especially the first time you did try to commit suicide, when you told your parents, like to just kind of figure out why or talk to you about what's going on instead of just like shutting you up and ignoring the fact of like what just happened.
As if it'll go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing with mental health that unfortunately, especially in the Hispanic culture, it's a stigma. It's something you don't talk about. You keep to yourself. You don't want to burden other people with your problems. You sort of keep it, happy and dandy and going, fake the smile if you have to, and then come back home, cry yourself to sleep, and then wake up and do it all over again. And that's what I was doing. But, now as an adult, now that I'm in a position where I went to the psychiatrist, I'm the one who got diagnosed. Now I know what's going on mentally, and it's like, aha, like, okay, all right, I get it now. I wish that's something that my sister could have gone through, but she didn't, because she wasn't somewhere where she could have got it, and she didn't have anybody to talk to. And, after I got diagnosed, it wasn't like, wow, that was up from there. Till this day, I'm still have my lows, but after that, they started me with the medication, and it's like they give you mood stabilizers and then antidepressants and then anxiety medication. And there was a point where I felt like a freaking zombie.
Were you drinking at all through any of this, or what was that?
At that point, I had left the environment where people were drinking, with the people I was drinking with. I sort of isolated myself. The only people I really had was like my parents and my husband at the time. Mind you, when I got Baker acted, and that was a response. We knew the relationship's over. So now at this point, I'm going through recovery. This happened on a November. December goes along, and I'm trying out these medications. I'm not even working because I can't even drive while I'm on these medications. Like, I'm done. Like, I feel like a zombie. January comes along, and one day I come home and all of my husband's stuff is gone. And I'm like, all right, I guess it's over. It would have been nice to know, but okay. And we had decided, we're going to be amicable. We have a kid. Let's get divorced together. We'll file together and, we'll share custody. That was the whole plan. Well, mind you, at the same time, I'm going through my mental recovery. Like I was just at a psych ward like a month or two ago, and I get served divorce papers. And at this point, I'm like, damn, I don't get a break. Like I'm over here finally trying to work on myself. And it's like, all right, of course not. There's something else going on. I get served. And on these divorce papers, there's some crazy things on there, like about custody with my kid. And
like not having custody of your kid?
Yeah, like it was just a hot mess. And I'm like, dude, what happened with our agreement?
He was trying to fight you.
He was trying to fight because he was angry himself, and he had all the reason to be, because I wasn't the nicest wife. But come on, like I was just in a psych ward like a month and a half ago. Please, like, help me out. Again, his feelings, are not invalid, but I was going through so much. At that point, I'm not working. I'm trying all these medications. I'm doped up half the time off these medications. And I had to max out my credit cards to get a divorce lawyer that cost like $6,000. Just so at the end of it all, we could come to the same agreement we had. At this time, I'm starting a new job at a credit union. I happened to meet this guy. And it was just, all of a sudden he was cool. But this guy, I felt so different because when I first met him and we started, sort of dating, I disclosed. I'm like, listen, mentally, I'm messed up right now. Like, I don't want to put that burden on you. Like, you're going through your own stuff. And he accepted me for me. Like, it was the first person in my whole life that was like, don't worry, I'm here to help you. Like, let's figure it out together.
You probably hadn't heard that very often.
Well, no, and especially the people closest to you hadn't said that. So it's like this guy is almost like, oh my God, you accept me? Like, of course I'm going to be with you. Like, and like you said, it's like your loyalty.
Yep. And that's where that started. Like, I finally met someone, not only romantically, but it's a very deep connection that this person was willing to help me when I'm going through the darkest point of my life right now. And in the beginning, there's so many red flags that I chose to ignore because I had that support, that emotional support. And, the meds were not working. I felt disgusting all the time. Like, I never felt happy. I never felt sad. I don't think there's a worse feeling than that, just feeling nothing. And it's scary. It's scary not to feel nothing. So I chose to say, you know what, F this medication. Like, I'm going to have to figure it out how I've been figuring it out. And then this person that I happened to meet, now we're like 6 months in a year together. And he's like, you know what, like, you should really try some alternative medication. There's things out there, there's CBD, things like that. So I can say that this person really did help me with my mental journey of figuring out what worked for me. And I was able to find it through alternative medication, because the actual medication I got was just making me worse. But again, I solved one issue, creating another one at the same time, because, during this relationship, these red flags, what ended up happening is that I created a dependency off of this person. Like, I wasn't able to deal with my own emotions because, I had to learn how to do it myself, but I had him. So he was like,
your codependent relationship.
Yeah. And although there were so many things that I was just like, you're not supposed to be with this person. It's like, no, like, I need him to feel better. And, that's what happened. Like, I created this attachment to this person because he helped me so much with my mental that I refused to see everything else that was going on. Mm-hmm. And then, now we're talking more recent, and, my mental health journey is still going on. It's always going to be a work in progress. I found what works for me medically, and, I'm trying to see if that will be my forever solution. But now it's to the point where, okay, mentally I'm feeling a little bit better. I found what works for me. I'm starting to get sort of back to Cynthia. I'm starting to feel a little ambitious again. I'm starting to feel like, all right, what am I, I'm now 25, 26, 27. And it's like, okay, from the age of like 19 till now, the age of like 26, 27, it's been like numb mental health problems, drinking, drugs. Mm-hmm. All right, now it's time to like get back to what I needed to do. Like, all right. And, I'm with this person and I'm like, all right, like, what are we going to do? I'm have my ambition back. What is our life goal? Right. And he was more of the simple life, which there's nothing wrong with that. He was comfortable where he was at.
But you wanted more.
I want more. I've always wanted more. I was raised to want more because of my immigrant parents.
And you were able to, like, your social, like you said, it's like you were president of your class in high school. Like you have goals.
You're completely capable to achieve more.
Yeah. Exactly. And, because I was able to get out of this mental funk with this new medication that I have, and it was helping me. Now I'm back in I felt like I was Cynthia again. I was like, okay, now I'm in my mindset. I need to do something.
Are you still on that medication?
Yeah.
And so it's helping you?
It's helping. Yeah. But I feel like now maybe I want to try something else.
Okay.
And back to him, I created this codependency. The relationship didn't happen to work. It ended. Mm-hmm. This was back in Florida. So again, a pattern.
You're not in Florida now.
I'm not in Florida anymore. I'm not in Florida. No, and that relationship ended horribly, just because a lot of feelings were hurt. And I feel like those relationships that end horribly is because both parties are hurt, I don't have anything ill to say about the man. If anything, I'm beyond grateful because he helped me with my mental, and for that I'll be forever grateful. But it was time to move on. Mm-hmm. And I had my parents. My parents happened to be in Georgia, so I was like, you know what? Who do I have in Florida left? Nobody. Let me go to with my parents. And Sophia's dad was okay with it, and we're like, okay, let's do it. We both don't really have anybody in Florida left, and let's just go to Georgia. And after being independent and by myself with this other person for like a year or two, and going back with your parents, it's not easy. I sort of forgot what it was like to be with them, and it's a very heavy environment. I realized after being okay with myself mentally that they sort of didn't help me mentally. And I just
still had some resentments probably from when you were younger.
Exactly. It was a lot of anger, when you're raised in a household where there's like domestic violence, and you just don't understand, because you're just like, why don't you just leave? Or why don't you just stop being like that with her? Mm-hmm. And to me, it was just so simple, but neither of them chose me. They chose each other. So it's like I was tired of being like, let's leave, or I was tired of like defending. Mm. So it's like at that point, it's like I needed to start setting boundaries for myself. Mm-hmm. And now I have a kid. I don't want my kids to see the same things I saw when I was little. So, Georgia didn't work out because of that. Like, it just wasn't an environment that I wanted to raise my daughter in.
Well, that's important. What you said is you needed to create boundaries. Like, that's one thing that I've heard from a lot of people that are in similar positions, or just something is not healthy.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's family, relationships, whatever, and you need to set healthy boundaries. Like, there are some people will feel like it's like you're disowning somebody, or you'd feel guilty for not talking to somebody. But no, sometimes for yourself, you need to set healthy boundaries. It's the only way that you could work on yourself and grow.
Exactly.
And in this case, it was just not staying there.
Exactly. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, as an adult, as a mother, I see my parents not just as my parents, but as people. And I get that they have their own problems they're going through. And, as their daughter, there's only so much I can do. And if they're not choosing to help themselves, I can't make them. And I have to look out for myself and for my own now. Like, it's not, before I always saw them as my security blanket, but now it's like, no, I have to create my own security blanket, because they're not. And I have to be the security blanket for my kid now. Like, the times have changed. So, after being in Georgia for maybe not even a month, I call Sophia's dad. And by now, after the nasty divorce, we spoke it out. He's a great person now, and we co-parent great. Like, I love it because my daughter's the one who's benefiting out of it. I call him and I'm like, hey, like, why don't we just go back to Connecticut? I'm like, I understand I don't have any family over there, but you do. And if you have family, that means my daughter has family, and she won't have to be raised the way I was raised by myself all the time. I'm like, she'll have cousins, she'll have aunts, she'll have family, something I never had growing up because I was always moving and I really didn't have family like that. And he's like, he said yes. So we ended up back in Connecticut. And now it's just, I feel like I sort of clicked on the reset button once again. But this time it's not a full-blown reset, because I have those friendships and I'm so fortunate. Like, for instance, with Yvette, like we have those type of friendships that we may have not talked in like 5 years, but we pick up where we left off. Right?
Really. And it's...
Yeah, when we all hung out, I wouldn't have thought that it was that long that you guys have talked.
And we talked on the phone here and there. I think when I went to Florida for with the military, like, I saw you there and I was a freaking mess. Like, it's so embarrassing, actually. Like, your dad always sees me so drunk.
Well, we've had stories, with
not anymore, at least.
Not anymore.
No, and that's the thing. Like, coming back here, I feel refreshed. I feel like I'm ready to sort of take on what I'm supposed to be doing, and
you're doing it.
And I'm doing it. And what makes me even more proud about it is, like, I'm doing it by myself.
You're doing it in a healthy way.
It's
way. Like, the motivation that you have and the drive, it's not a manic episode. Like, you're just feeling good and healthy and motivated.
Exactly. And, and again, I keep on saying it, what makes me the most proud is that I'm doing it on my own. There's nobody, I'm not creating a dependency with anybody. I'm not using my parents as a security blanket. It's like, whatever happens from here on out, it's on me and just me. And whatever I'm doing from here on out not only affects me, affects my kid. So it's like, I have to. I'm like on survival mode, like I'm working through it. So now I'm working, I'm doing real estate classes. So you guys, real estate. No, but, I hope out of all of this, the story, anybody who's listening or watching, what they get out of it is like, please get help. Go talk to someone. It could avoid like a decade or more worth of just not understanding what's going on in your head. And I mean, yesterday, actually the day before yesterday, I had a manic episode. I had a crazy panic attack. I was feeling horribly. I cried myself to sleep. I woke up crying. I couldn't stop crying. I put the logic behind it. Why am I crying? I know my life is a little hard at the moment, but it's not like, but the good thing about it is like, I had my episode, but no suicidal thoughts. And, you know, I kept it moving. I'm like, all right, girl, drink, you know, don't drink, just cry, let it out. And we got to keep on going. Like, you know, we're going to keep on moving. You know, I've already been through, you know, my bottom dark place. Like, nothing is ever going to be that again. Like, I only know that whatever I go through from here on out, I got it because I've made it before, you know. I've lost my sister to it. I've almost lost myself to it. I've drunk like crazy. I've done drugs. And now I'm like, I've been through all of that. I know I could get through anything. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, now it's just living. Like, I'm excited to live and not have to feel weird about it, you know?
And you're definitely not alone, and you're talking about it. And definitely something I want to say that, you know, of course, you know, if someone going through any type of mental illness, like, you know, it's good to talk about it. But the people that aren't, if somebody comes up to you and lets you know that they are in a bad place, like, you don't want to take the chance to not take it seriously. So we're actually going to put the link to the suicide hotline on the description, because it's like, I feel like everybody should just know and have that accessible for sure.
Yes. And to anybody listening, you know, being someone who suffers from a mental illness, you know, my doors are always open. If I could help just one person, you know, I wish I could have been that person for my sister, but just one person, that would be good.
I love Cynthia.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Really?
Thank you for having me.
I mean, this is no, nothing to be sorry for. This is incredible. I mean, I'm glad you're here. It's a miracle you're here. You will help people. You're gonna help not just one person. You're gonna help people. It's something that needs to be talked about. I'm glad you're here to talk about it, and I think that was important too. What you said, like, for somebody that maybe isn't suffering, but somebody that is close to somebody that is, like, you can't take the chance that to not take it serious.
Exactly.
Like, it's not the risk reward to not take it serious, you know. It's the same way as if somebody goes out and breaks their shoulder, breaks their arm, that person needs help. You don't say, we'll put a Band-Aid on it, it'll be okay. Like, no, somebody needs help. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate it.
I love you.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Bye, guys.